Okay, gentlemen, welcome to the stage. We'll start by asking a few questions. We'll keep this panel session as interactive as we possibly can, but I'll start with one question for, we'll start with you, Colin. What is the key challenges companies face as they begin to drive mobility within their organisations? It's quite a general one to start with.
I think the key challenges have sort of already been addressed in some of the previous commentary, I think with John. And I think it's the fact they don't have a mobility strategy. You know, you look at consumers and the way they've adopted everything, and businesses falling behind on that, and they've got to do it. And what we've noticed is a number of clients adapting this sort of mobility technology to catch up to the consumers. And that's the biggest challenge at the moment, getting people to really think hard about how this will affect the business. And I think I've seen before a lot of people are reluctant to make changes or to step ahead with innovation, with mobility, because they'll lose their job if it goes wrong.
Thanks, Colin. Any other panel members like to take a stab at that one?
Certainly from our perspective at Excellion, we play in the mobile file sharing space, and we're certainly seeing organisations grappling with how they provide access to their users, to corporate content, and how they control that. Increasingly users are looking to use their mobile devices as a content origination device, rather than a year ago, 2 years ago, mobile was all about consuming content. And so to drive that productivity and get the benefits from mobility, we're certainly seeing organisations struggle with how they deliver that content in a secure and controlled way. And going back to some of the comments in the earlier presentations, how they, I guess, enable users to get the same functionality that they're used to through public consumer-grade file sharing services, but do it in a controlled and appropriate enterprise way. Thanks, Kieran. Doug, do you want to have a...
I think that it really goes to security and being able to roll it out in the right way, in a way that's going to kind of be appeasable to the users, and that seems to be a challenge.
Sure. Ramesh, any thoughts?
Yes, so in terms of the mobile security, it's a very good point in terms of mobile strategy, because what we are seeing is a big bang of mobility, like this plethora of devices, user adoption, consumer access in terms of how they're using it, the app economy, and also the ecosystem as well. It's actually grown manyfold in the last 5 years or so. So in terms of mobile strategy, people are still grappling with many platforms, many operating systems, many customer sizes, and how do I actually deal with all those kind of consumers who are rapidly changing their phones every 3 months? How do I keep up with that kind of demand? What's my strategy? Is it my strategy 5-year strategy, or is it my strategy 3 to 6 month strategy, or is it like a rolling strategy? So it's always have to be on the toes in terms of what technology is offering.
Okay. That's a good lead into the next point I want to make, which is how far along the mobile adoption curve are most of your customers, the people that you're speaking with every day? Are they planning to mobilise now in 12 months, 18 months? What sort of feedback you're getting from them? Colin, do you want to start?
I've got to say, some of our clients, they're way ahead of it, and we've seen with a lot of the boards in Australia, early adoption from the board members, from the committee members. I know in terms of all of you who are involved from the CIO perspective, generally you'll test it and then roll it out somewhere before you then put it into the senior levels. But as you all know, they get the iPad for Christmas, then they start playing with it, and they tell the CIOs, I want my email on there regardless. So we're actually seeing huge uptake, but I think what we need to see now is that spread throughout the businesses and that happening. So I think there's everyone loves innovation. Australians are early adopters, so it's already there, and I think we're doing great from that perspective.
Okay. Doug, any thoughts on that?
Well, we see customers kind of from every angle of the curve. DocuSign being really applicable to human resources, to sales, where we end up actually bringing kind of that first beachhead in uses. But companies are either building apps that they want to integrate DocuSign into, kind of on our leading edge customers, all the way to, they just want to be able to install DocuSign in a secure way on their devices. And having that good plugin has really been an advantage for a lot of our customers to be able to roll that out in an effective way.
Okay. I might put a spin on it for you, Kieran, is if you come across any customers who aren't very advanced when it comes to...
Absolutely. I think you're seeing organisations across different vertical industries that are at different stages of mobility. Some are, ahead of the curve and really embracing it and driving productivity and benefits for their organisation. Others, it was I think maybe an expression you used earlier, Rodney, about the wave washing over them and them being forced to try and catch up and put some controls in space because their users were really leading the charge and they had, and have very little strategy in place around mobility. So there's a real divergence, I think. It's a continuum, if you like. I think what has changed though over the last 12 months is increasingly the devices are there to drive productivity, not simply consume content. And that's certainly something. It's not just about getting email and calendar on a phone or on a tablet. It's actually about work processes and standard workflows that you expect to be able to do on your PC at the desk. Users now want to be able to do that on a mobile device, and increasingly organisations, the smart ones, are facilitating that because it really is driving increased productivity and profitability.
Okay, thanks, Kieran. Ramesh, any thoughts on maturity?
Sure. From a security aspect, at CellTrust, we are looking at secure communications between different devices. So there's a varying degree of adoption in terms of what people are wanting to do. Organizations are looking for their strategy point of view. Some organizations are very advanced. They really want to be locked in from a security angle. They really want to be rock solid security. But there's always a tussle between security and usability. I mean, the usability aspect, people do not want their phones to be locked in. They want more experience. The CXP platform is gaining momentum, the customer experience platform. So it's varying degrees of how the organization, within the organization itself, the people like CMOs, for example, who are gaining, having a bigger say in terms of how my organization is going to be viewed in the industry, the chief marketing officers. And then there's people like chief digital officers having a different spin on that as well. Like, what does digital mean? Whether it's security or usability or a combination of everything. So.
Okay, thanks. Good point. Okay, well, I think our panelists are warmed up now. So, any questions from the floor? No? Okay, well, if not, we'll keep it rolling. So what mobile, we'll move the conversation to apps and processes. What mobile apps processes are driving biggest productivity gains in terms of return on investment and why? And can you share any specific numbers such as metrics to help illustrate this? So we may as well start with you again, Colin.
I think, Rodney, a couple of the best examples I've seen is BoardPad develops a paperless application for directors to read board papers. We integrate through Good, so single sign-on, but a couple of examples come to mind that I know where this has benefited the organisations. I won't mention their names, but there was a little while back, a lot of you will know Qantas planes were grounded, and during that time people missed their board meetings. So at that time, if there was any issues getting the board papers, they just went onto the app, and that saved a lot of productivity there. Another director missed their flight from London to a board meeting, and so they could publish material securely so they could view that information. They're just a couple of simple examples. And another one is that if you have a look, and I don't know how many of you are from a director's point of view, but there was a case called Centro, and in Centro there was some simple information that was missed from the board meeting. And with things like keyword searching, you can't do that from a hard copy. And so they're just a few simple examples of how digital is changing the way people are consuming information and collaborating as well.
Okay, thanks. Doug, any thoughts on mobile apps and processes driving productivity gains and return on investment?
Yeah, being from DocuSign, it's tough not to say DocuSign. The productivity gains from, for a sales team, really being able to free them from the desk to get those contracts done. You don't have to go back out and visit customers over again to just get that document signed. We actually had our own event a couple weeks ago, and we had a kind of a time-lapse slide on where documents had been signed over the last 4 or 5 years. And you can see that in a lot of the vacation places, in the last 2 years, mobility has been up about 25% year over year of documents that are signed. And it's Indonesia, Mexico, Hawaii. It's actually enabling our customers as well as our internal employees to do their business wherever they're at. And in collaboration with file sharing and documents, being able to use documents through your mobile devices and not just view them like you would on email, but to actually collaborate straight from the device has been fantastic internally at DocuSign.
Okay, great. Kieran, any examples of optimised business processes?
Well, certainly, I guess in terms of the statistics, the one I always come back to, because the one that had the most impact on me personally, was a study I saw last year that suggested that mobility was providing an extra work day per week. So people were getting 6 days productivity out of a 5-day workday. I'm not sure whether that's a positive or a negative, but it's a bit scary when you think about all the time that we all spend on our devices, checking email, working wherever we might be, rather than the bad old days, as it were, you had to be at your desk in order to do things. From our perspective, we're certainly seeing productivity gains through providing users the ability to access their existing internal data stores, enterprise content management systems like SharePoint or Documentum, so that they don't have to be sitting at their desks in order to get access to their standard corporate content. Doing that in a secure way that facilitates productivity. So that's one of the areas we do it. Another way is through enabling users to manipulate and create Microsoft Office documents, which still for most users out there are the bread and butter of any certainly clerical or white collar role. So that's certainly driving productivity in our space.
Okay, Ramesh.
In terms of productivity, I've seen I'm referencing a Gartner study that was done recently, about interviewing about 406 CEOs, and more than half of the CEOs are going into the mobile, social, cloud kind of concept. But 48% of them are looking to make an IT investment in the next 6 months, for example, to increase the productivity for enterprise applications. So when I'm talking about enterprise applications like the CRM, the buzzword that's been used is the front-end applications, not the back office. It's front office applications where there's multiple customer touch points, like the workforce automation, the sales force, the people on the field who are using this kind of mobility type of technologies to communicate with each other. So those are the things that's really driving in terms of the productivity gains as organizations putting their mobile strategy going forward.
Okay, thank you. So I'll ask any questions from the audience at all? Anyone have any questions? No?
Must be beer o'clock, is it?
Yeah.
How many people, can we ask how many people actually have a mobility strategy now in their organisation?
Yeah, why not? If the audience won't ask a question, then you ask a question to the audience, right? So who has a mobility strategy? Number of people?
I think I saw a study in the UK where 64% of businesses didn't have a mobility study in 2014. And so we're already in May.
That's true. Okay, well, I'll ask another question to the panel then. There's been a lot of talk about, app development architectures on mobile devices, from native to HTML5 and so forth. So a few emerging technologies there. It'd be good to get your thoughts as providers of applications in the mobile space. How do customers make an informed decision as to which type of development architecture is best suited for them? So, any takers?
I don't have much to say, but we've got both.
Okay, you got both.
We see customers that are either building their own applications and plugging DocuSign into their existing applications, whether it be web-based or app-based, more and more. And internally, we build both, whether it be HTML5, iOS, Android. You really have to have applications that are available on all platforms.
Sure.
And that kind of goes for every workforce, but we've seen a lot more, and since I've been here, about 5 months now, I've seen a lot of customers building on iOS and for their own workforce applications to kind of spearhead that mobile strategy as part of it.
Okay. Kieran?
And I'm certainly not going to add too much value at the platform level, but I think the only point I'd make is that supporting multiple platforms, both from a corporate strategy and from a vendor perspective, is fundamental in this brave new mobile world that we find ourselves in.
Sure. Ramesh, any
So
thoughts?
from a security point of view, it's slightly different in terms of what people are doing. So from a perception point of view is that iOS is more secure than the Android kind of ecosystem, right? So our strategy is definitely supporting both the iOS and Android. So we work with some partners here, like, for example, Samsung, certainly from good technology point of view, to find out from a device level security, from containerization that Good provides, and application security that we have. So we have to supplement both these platforms in terms of providing a roadmap of what we can expect into two different ecosystems, which are essentially different in their security model. So.
Right.
Do you guys look at kind of HTML5 and web-based application support?
We currently, so the way it works out in our application, it's an app, it's a native app, it actually sits on the device. The reason for that is because of the security handshake mechanism. We can't really go back into web-based thing for doing a handshake because we do have multiple levels of handshake and not just looking at SSL type of handshake. So having said that, we also have a strategy for a encrypted phone to a non-encrypted phone. For example, if a person wants to communicate with the person who's having this app, which is an encrypted one, we do have a strategy for that communication to happen, but only for you to claim your messages or claim your emails and not. So there's a bit of give and take in terms of a pure web strategy versus a native app strategy.
Okay. Anyone think of any questions? Is it?
Anyone seen too much of Win Phone in the marketplace?
Question is, anyone seeing anything much of Windows Phone in the marketplace? So I'll leave that open to anyone.
So I can probably add from a security point of view, yes, we definitely are looking at Windows Phone development as well. The customers are asking for, as I said, in terms of multiple OSs, multiple devices, they want to be able to support, even though Windows is about 5% or so, they want to be able to support a subset of users who are using Windows, and we don't want to alienate those kind of users. And also the marketplace is that Windows is seen on par with Android in terms of the security model compared to the iOS sort of thing. So even though in the desktop area it's very different scenario. So we have to be able to support through certain strategic partnerships to be able to provide Windows alternative as well.
From a popularity perspective, we're seeing more and more, although I think that Windows launching Outlook and the Windows platform for iOS is going to severely hinder that. But I think as 365 and the Microsoft platform is rolled out and adopted, and they've done a fantastic job with that. I see more popularity and the usage going up considerably.
Yeah. Certainly anecdotally, definitely seeing more Windows Mobile out there, and probably not surprising, it tends to be in some of the organisations that exert more IT control over the devices in the organisation and those that are supported, which probably fits with a sort of an overarching Microsoft strategy in some organisations.
Okay, thanks. I can change the conversation a bit to talk about the role of the CEO in mobility. We've spoken a lot about security and some low-level strategic stuff. But what's the CEO's role in mobility? What kinds of requirements are being driven to by the C-suite and the board of directors? This is your sort of home turf. So go ahead.
Rodney, the world, look what's going on. You have Mark Zuckerberg who has done a brilliant job getting Facebook out there, and these CEOs, these directors, these chair people are very intelligent, respectful people. They've seen the world's changed, and their businesses have got to adopt to that change. So a lot of them are driving now the mobile, the whole digital. They may not understand it properly, but they're driving it and they're getting the consultants in. They're being asked, they're playing with the apps, they're using it because they know that is what's going to make their business continue. And digital disruption's happening everywhere. All of you that live here in Australia, I'm sure you heard the recent report about what's happening in the taxi industry. It's digital disruption and destruction. And so every CEO has that on the top of their mind, and when they have sleepless nights, it's about the mobility strategy and where digital's going and where the apps are going. And I've had many company secretaries who have said to me half of the reason they went to paperless board meetings was to understand how the board pad app worked and how apps are there. And it's all happening. So to everyone out there, it's a matter of getting on board or missing out. And if you miss out, somebody else will take that opportunity.
Okay, So, question from the audience.
Can you recommend any ways to try and make getting the workforce on board a positive experience instead of just an iron fist, you must do this, you must use the app? What sort of strategies would you recommend to try and make it a more positive experience to get it out there?
Yeah, look, I think user adoption is absolutely one of the fundamental challenges in a strategic mobile strategy or rollout. And I think choice of applications and use cases and workflows that you look to mobilise first, I think, is important. And from that, it's about the user experience. So it's about what they're seeing. And because your users, well, typically users have had experience with consumer grade apps that are very cool, very sexy, very funky. If your corporate apps are not delivering that, or the apps that you select from vendors, if they're not delivering that same kind of funkiness, then you're going to struggle. And then I think the next step is education. It's about empowering and educating.
And I'd echo the popularity of apps and selecting different applications is going to make it not feel so much like a task to adopt the policy, but really giving them tools, collaboration, file sharing, increasing their productivity is going to make them want to take that leap. Having the ability to remove paper from the office is incredibly driving. You don't have to walk over the printer 5 times throughout the day, staple something together, and then I can't even imagine kids nowadays not even understanding what a fax machine is, and kind of the archaic ways of actually doing business that we keep around just need to be replaced altogether. And I think the workforce knows that and understands that with the apps they're using in their personal life. So it's just about providing, as part of that transition, applications that's going to make that a rewarding experience.
I would like to echo on that very point here in terms of what I've seen is gaming industry is actually driving the enterprise applications in this marketplace. The reason why gaming industry is so successful is the feedback mechanism and be able to provide certain trinkets at the right time to keep the users motivated for them to keep coming back to the same app again, Candy Crush, for example. So that's what people are using in the enterprise applications as well, to able to hook those users in to come back repeatedly. So give them some feedback and saying, providing some part of the experience.
Sure, thank you. Okay, well, we've now come to the end of the panel session, so please join me in thanking our panel members, Colin, Doug, Kieran and Ramesh.